Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Honey Podcast. So this week, I'm back. I'm back. So hey, and I'm Jodie, and we also have
Danny?
And this week, we decided that it'd be a pretty cool idea to actually talk about something pretty serious. That's how our fave people and people with a platform with mental health are portrayed and in the media and on social media, and why I personally don't particularly agree with how things are handled. I thought we all, like, I don't know how you particularly feel about anyone in particular, but obviously the standout person that seems to get a pretty bad time in the news and on Twitter in particular at the moment is Kanye. Um, as someone who I believe has BPD, which is a condition I'm diagnosed with, but he has openly expressed, which is his decision, that he doesn't want to take medication for it. I do, but like I respect everyone's decision whether they are or not. I just feel like that um, personally, that's his decision. He's also allowed to say, think, and feel whatever he wants as a person. And that doesn't need to be made into a mockery by the average Joe blogs who might say a retweet with what they consider a funny comment. And it doesn't need to be taken by the media and torn apart to make a mockery of him either. I think personally for me, what it comes down to at the end of the day is he's an artist who is a visionary, a musical genius, has a fashion line. He has all of these really cool things that he's doing. And yeah, there are a couple of things he is doing that I may not agree with. Like, I love Kanye's music and, like, but I don't necessarily want him to run for president. But that's his call and he's entitled to do that as just as much as anyone's entitled to vote for him if they want to. So it's like I don't agree with people basically trying to clown him. And I'm sure to a point he doesn't care,
Right.
like what other people think. He's doing his own thing. But when you're doing that to someone who has a platform like him, you're also allowing it to be normalized for anyone to do it to anybody. People that may not be as like, they maybe, that's, I'm getting my words muddled, but they would be more sensitive towards it.
Right.
So what do you think? Any, like, you don't even need to talk about Kanye if you don't want to,
Yeah,
but I just thought he was a good example.
of course. I agree that he's a really great example just because of the level of fame he has and everything. And I think that my opinion on it is that, like, we've done a lot better job more recently, respecting, like, normal people. Well, not normal, but like famous people. I mean, regular people, not famous people. We've
Yeah.
been doing a better job, kind of like appreciating mental health and making sure it matters and like all that stuff, and respecting people that are going through mental health struggles. But then when we look into the media and like to famous people, we give them a lot harder of a time. And I think that that's like kind of sucks, and it shouldn't be like that. I mean, even me at first, like, I was like, what the hell is Kanye talking about? He's being crazy and this and that, and laughing at the memes and stuff. And then you come to the realization and you figure out, hey, he openly talks about his BPD, and you're like, this is like really sad, and he does not like deserve to be made fun of, and he gets it a lot harder. And I know I read some things about him in the past and how he used to be on medication and he stopped taking it after his mother passed away because he was really close to his mom, and his mom was the only one who could get him to take his medication and stuff. And it's like we're making fun of him for acting out in like the way he is, because like you said, he's
Mm.
doing some stuff that, we don't agree with, but it's a reaction from like his like struggle. Like,
Hmm.
and it's not fair to make fun of him, and I know we had mentioned when we talked about this topic in general, we were talking about another one that is a huge issue currently, I guess, as well, which would be Britney Spears. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's very aware of like what she's going. Well, while we don't know exactly what she's going through, it's very clear that she's like struggling very heavily with something. And like, it's like people go and make fun of her, and her behavior is out of character for her. So like, of course we are like, what's going on? Like, this is weird, this is that. But like, it's also very, very clear that she is struggling very, very much so. And like, it's not something that I think that should be taken lightly. And I think it's not something that should be joked about.
Yeah. And I mean, with Britney, and this is coming from someone who has been a fan through the ages of pretty much every era of Britney. Like I grew up with Britney. Um, you know, I will say, like, in comparison to how invasive and horrific the media used to be back in 2007 and stuff, when everything really started going like a bad way for her. Like, the girl couldn't leave her house or get out of a vehicle without having a camera in her face. Every little move was like analyzed before. The completely different subject and a completely different podcast, really, of the Guardian. So it was not guardianship order. She's got something like, that's what we call them over here, conservatorship. That's what
Oh
she's
yeah,
got.
yeah,
And, so that's a completely different conversation for a different day, because I would really like to delve into the whole
yeah.
Free
For
Britney
sure.
movement. But, the fact that what what's the contrast between her and how Kanye are being treated at the moment, when you look at it, he's been made a mockery of, but people are actually concerned for Britney.
Right,
And I'm
right.
like, well,
Where's that
treat people the same. They're both humans. They're both going through things. Treat them the same. And I appreciate, like, having concern for both of them, and I see specifically why people are concerned about Britney.
right?
Uh, but yeah, I know you still see the odd troll making a joke and things like that, but it's quite interesting to put those two particular people that are out there, that are huge names that everyone pretty much knows, how differently they are being treated now. But don't get me wrong, 10, 15 years ago, she was being treated worse. So, and I get that.
I think when you say that, like it is interesting to me, because at that time, like, I was so like, I was younger and so unattached to the stigma of mental health and everything, that like I wasn't paying attention to that. But it really is so true. Like, she was going through this and the spotlight was just on her constantly, constantly, constantly. And that is horrible. I can't
Mm.
imagine.
And for her specifically, obviously from an extremely young age, has had that. Um, I mean, she was part of the Disney Mickey Mouse Club, so she's
Right.
always had a spotlight on her. Uh, but then obviously she became unwell, and at the same time, the media turned on her as well. So, I mean, everyone remembers the infamous her shaving her hair off.
Right.
She was stood in wherever she was. I think it was a hairdresser's. She was stood in there shaving her hair, and they were stood in the doorway filming it. Like, she had no. I mean, and there's so many people with a platform that talk and have a dialogue about their mental health, and
Right.
it's respected, and everyone's so proud of them for being open about it. But then other people, just because they're not handling it so well, they seem to be ripped apart and made a joke of. And I feel like everyone needs to really buck up and realize that mental health isn't a joke, and it isn't something to, get the highest, like the highest likes on Twitter or Instagram. It's not about making someone into a meme. It needs to be either support that person or scroll on and like let them live their life, because Kanye's made it quite clear that he doesn't want to take the medication, and as a grown ass man, that's his decision that he's allowed to make, until a professional advises him or he says otherwise. He has the freedom to do exactly what he wants to do, and people need to just kind of respect that and leave him alone if they haven't got anything nice to say.
Right.
Because one thing I'll say as someone, and I'm not saying I speak for everyone with BPD, I don't, but speaking for myself, one of the biggest things about having borderline personality disorder is, unlike bipolar, where you can stay in a series of mania or depressive episode for quite a considerable amount of time, someone with borderline personality disorder can have 10 different emotions in the space of an hour, and they have generally have a huge fear of abandonment. So, all these people joking and mocking and taking the piss are basically, all that's doing is feeding into they're turning their backs on me, they're walking away, they're leaving me alone. That's how I would feel. And as someone who does feel like that, I also feel like one of the biggest things I also have is a huge amount of empathy. So what all I would try to advise people is, in a situation like this, before you try to create a meme or say something funny just because you think that it will get you attention, maybe put yourself in their position and think how you would feel if people were talking about you that way, whether you have a mental health condition or not. And then if you haven't got a mental health condition, multiply that negative feeling of how you'd feel if it was done to you by 100, and you're still not close to how you're probably making that other person feel.
Right.
I mean,
I think I mean, I completely agree with you 100%. And I think that another big one, excuse me, sorry, is that like we see a lot of artists kind of deal with the depression side of mental health. And, obviously that triggers things like drug use and stuff like that. And I think that a lot of the time it feels like to me that a lot of the time they get enabled by their managers, by this and that, by the lifestyle,
yeah.
And like for me, like I've lost some of my favorite artists to that, as today is Little Peep's birthday, and I love Little Peep like a lot. And like he's somebody that struggled with clearly struggled with mental health, and ultimately it took him to his untimely death. And the entire time his team and like managers and this and that like are enabling it, and it's like that should not be how it should be, like. And as fans, we need to do our part too, to like, hey, we can tell our favorite artist is struggling, what can we do to like help? I mean, like realistically, what can we do to help? But like by not making fun of them, by not making memes about them, like by being respectful of them, like exactly like how I said of Britney Spears, like it's all about how would we want to be treated, like as we struggle through our own mental health things. I can't imagine like having a camera on me all the time and being enabled by like the people that are supposed to be supporting me. Like that's not what it's about.
Yeah, and I feel like if we actually addressed stopping the mockery and the teasing and the horrible things being said, it would allow more space to open up a dialogue where it is more normalized for people to say, look, I'm not doing okay today. I can't do this today.
Yeah.
And that needs to happen more. And I mean, it is fantastic that we have so many artists out there that are actually doing that. Let's not neglect the fact that there are people out there that struggle and they're open with it and they discuss it, and it helps their fans and things like that. But then we also have to take into consideration the ones that are still talking about it, like Kanye, but aren't doing so great. They're not doing so great for a reason. So you know, instead of feeding into the negativity and making a situation bigger than it needs to be for the wrong reasons, let's make it bigger for the right reasons, to, like, you know, to support that person, instead of pulling them down. Because I feel like people forget that their actions and words have consequences, and that's not just with mental health. That's a generalized statement on social medias, which we've discussed before. You know, like, people need to realize that what they put out there, you know, it breeds negativity, it breeds bringing people down, and you never know who's going to read that really doesn't need to see it that day.
Right. And you know, while it's easier for us to understand this because like we are just, you know, regular like people, so are they at the end of the day. I mean, yeah, they're famous, but like they just as much as us. Like sometimes you can read things on social media about yourself or whatever, and you know, the person saying it doesn't know how much that's affecting you, and like it's the same way for them. And even amplified because it's not just one person, it's pretty much like thousands, you know.
And if one person's saying that and you have a fan base, how many thousands of millions of people are reading that about them as well?
Right. And you know, we talked about it a little bit before while we were getting prepared for today's episode, and sometimes those mental health moments, you do need a break from social media. And I think that we need to, as fans, be respected to, like, we need to respect an artist when they have to take those moments of like break from social media. I know with 5 Seconds of Summer, they're like, are they off social media still, or they took a break from it? Or
some of them have been, some of them haven't, but like, they're a great example of, you know, they're taking a break for a reason. We don't need to know what their reason is. That's their business. Let's respect it. And they're all people that have spoken about being open about having mental health before, like Ashton has, and his solo music, and some of the things he says to support and help people on social media reflects that. But you know, he's also admitted that sometimes he needs to take a time away from social media. And Michael has done exactly the same thing. And I totally don't blame him. It's a healthy thing to do, even if you haven't got a platform. I've said before and here, and I feel like I know I'm repeating myself, but I had a pretty decent big Twitter account at one point. Not massive, but like, for someone who, you know, was just on there to hype their bands up, you know, I had a few thousand followers, and I just couldn't deal with seeing all the toxicity and nastiness anymore. And there were so many people that I would have had to unfollow. I just thought, and then the conversations that may come afterwards, like, why did you unfollow me? I thought, you know, screw this. I'm just going to close down my Twitter account. I'm going to set up a new one and start fresh.
People, fans need to not get like, you know, you can't get angry at artists and like your favorite artists because they are taking those breaks. Like, I know I've seen people be like, I wish, especially just because I'm using 5 Seconds of Summer as an example because they are like such a big one for everybody. But I see people like, you know, get mad and get upset, like, oh, I wish they were on Twitter. This is why they're off Twitter. Like those conversations are constantly being held. Like we need to like just respect the space of artists because they are real people, just like we are. They need a break from it sometimes.
I'm glad you actually brought 5 Seconds of Summer up as an example, because like, this hasn't been a great year for a fandom, and I'm not going to give too much oxygen to the horrible negative things that have been said, but you know, what has been quite prevalent is the fact that, you know, how different certain band members can be treated to each other, and how certain band members can do things that other people can't, and I feel very strongly that, you know, as a fan, and I know I'm older, but I'm as like you, we've been fans through the years. As I know, teenage Jodie would not have been out there literally, you know, bashing one member and supporting another,
Right.
giving, or bashing another one and not when another band member may or may not have done a similar thing, not holding them to the same standard. I feel like you need to either support a band and you support all of them, or you don't support them at all. Because what you've got to remember is at the end of the day, you are a fan, but they're a band. And in this particular instance, they're also like, they call themselves brothers for a reason. They see each other as family and they're going to stick together and support each other. And that's what's the most important thing to them. And that's what makes them so special. So like, I kind of had to get that off my chest as a fan as well. Like, I'm not going to go too specific with it, but I feel like, so if you support, you don't just support one or two or three in that band, you support and endorse all four, or you
Right.
don't at all. Like, to me, it just seems ridiculous. Like, so are you telling me that when you listen to a song, you're muting every time you hear that other member sing or play a guitar? And of course you're not. You're still singing, you're still enjoying it. So therefore you like the entire band, or you don't at all. I just think
who they are without all their members. So
yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. And I really think that is an important part of it too, because then you're picking apart, one soul. It's like it all stems back to the mental health awareness and like being a good person in general. Like you're attacking one member for the same things somebody else is doing, or like this or that or whatever, like you were just saying, and then like you're attacking their mental health at a point, because think about how they're feeling, like
especially, I mean, we don't know whether they see it, but I'm sure they do. And I'm sure it, like, it's just like, I really don't think people realize that some of the things they say about other people, and this is just generalized, it's not specific towards this band or anything, they don't realize when, like, some of the horrible things that they say, like how it would affect them if it was being said about them. They really need to like think. And I mean, this is really where things need to be kept in the draft sometimes. Like, you need to think before you speak and what you put out there. And we're using these people with platforms as an example because, of how you shouldn't be treating people, because it's also like, people take it to the next level where they think it's okay to just treat anyone like that as well. Like, I understand public figures are out there and are open to being criticized because they're public figures. Like, that's a thing, and I get it. But you don't have to just be an ass for no reason.
right.
And so many people are. And then, like, you have to remember, basically being a fan is supporting your favorite people that you look up to, buying their music and going to their shows. It's sad, and I'm sure loads of people would want to be their best friends, but you have to realize you're not. You are a fan. You don't know them, and you don't know what's going on in their life, and there has to be a line of respect. That's the key thing. That, like, it feels like there's so little respect on social media and, in articles and that you read sometimes. Like, yeah, just, treat people the way you want to be treated. Yeah, that's really all I gotta say. Like, I don't know if you have any more that you want to add to that.
No, I mean, I'm totally with you. I'm on board with that. And sometimes we lose ourselves in it. I mean, I lose myself in it too. But I'm starting to learn, and I think that's an important lesson for everyone to learn.
Yeah.
Just take a step back and, think about how you want to be treated and how you deserve to be treated. And that's how you should treat other people.
Totally. And just my last bit to say is just remember that kindness costs nothing. And Harry says treat people with kindness for a reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it from me today and from Danny. And if you have any comments you want to make, you can do that on YouTube, or you can send us a tweet at the Honey Pop. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, we welcome them as well. So from me, it's a goodbye, and
Bye.
from Danny Duke, see ya.